Smooth as butter. Hey folks, we're back again with another video. And once again, this is part of our new bike build series. And today we are going to be adjusting the drivetrain that we just recently installed. We're going to be cutting the chain to size. We're going to be adjusting the gears to make sure everything shifts nice and smooth. And we're going to be adjusting the chain guide. If you've been intimidated by adjusting your own gears in the past, don't be. This is not a hard job. There's only a few details that we need to pay attention to, and everything else will go very smooth. I'm going to try and do my best to explain those details so you guys can move forward on your own to adjust your own gears, which I think is very important. All right, we're not going to need any parts, but we will be needing some tools. So let's go into those tools next. Not many tools needed for this job. First, we're going to start off with cutting the chain. This is a full suspension bike, so we're going to have to take the air out of the shock and compress the bike. You're going to need something to keep the bike compressed, unless you have somebody to help you. I'm going to use a tie strap to do that. You could use anything that will help keep the suspension in a compressed state. Now, we're going to measure the chain, then we're going to need to mark the chain, so get yourself some kind of marker, black marker, blue marker. Then we're going to need to take the pin out that we're going to mark. You're going to need a chain brake tool to take that pin out. Then these are optional. They're just third hands. When you go to put the master link back onto the quick link, this, helps the chain stay close without having tension to it, so you could easily put on the master link, right? Talk about master link, two options there. You could either use a tool to install and take off a master link, is all this is, or you could use a pedal and force to actually force that master link to lock in place. Then we're going to move to the derailleur. 2mm and 4mm Allen are going to be your best friends. You're going to need those for the derailleur for sure. When we're done adjusting it, we're going to want to cut the shifter cable. You're going to need a cable cutting tool of some sort, or a plier or anything. And this is another optional tool. It's one of those few park tools that I actually like. It's a crimp tool. It just crimps the cap ends. I'm surprised nobody came up with this sooner. It's just real seamless. And that's it. If there's anything else, we'll go over it in the job, all right? So the first thing we're going to work on is cutting the chain to the proper length. Now, this being a full suspension bike, we need to take that suspension travel into consideration. Unlike a hardtail where you don't have to worry about any of that. Typically, when the suspension compresses, the effective distance between the axle and the center of the crank will increase, and we need to take into account that increase in chain length. Now, Shimano states that if you use their method to calculate chain length, you don't have to worry about any of that. I'm not too sure about that one. I like going with SRAM's method, where they want you to compress the suspension all the way prior to measuring your chain, prior to cutting it. Two ways you could do this: take the air out of the shock, or you could disconnect one side of the shock. Personally, I think the best and most accurate way is to take the air out of the shock, because that's going to be the max your suspension will compress. Whereas if you disconnect the shock, there'll be a little bit more compression, because they always leave a little bit of extra room. If you do take the air out, just make sure to write down your PSI. There's multiple ways that you could compress the suspension. The easiest would be to put both wheels on the bike, take the air out of the shock, and put it on the ground and compress it, and then hold it down with something. Now I'm going to do it on the stand. I'm still going to need my rear wheel, but I'm not going to put it on the front wheel, so it'll be a little bit different. Ultimately, overall, it's still the same principle. Next, what we're going to do is disconnect our chain. Take the chain link off. Remember, we did not put it down tight. You should be able to easily do it by hand and wrap it around and out of the rear derailleur, and we could just let the front hang off. Next, I'm going to mount the rear wheel. So first, I'm going to move the derailleur out of the way. Pick the wheel up, get it in, and there we go. Take your axle, we're going to put it in all the way, and then I don't know if yours is going to be a 5 or a 6mm, but we definitely want to crank it down. Well, crank it down, we want to tie it down. Just snug, it doesn't have to be overly hard. So now we compress the suspension. I already removed the air out of the rear shock. Remember to write down your PSI when doing so. I don't need to worry about that over here. And then I'm going to use a tie strap to make it easy for myself. Just going to wrap it around one side here, wrap it around the wheel in the back end here, and then take it and wrap it around up here. Then I'm just going to compress it. And if you notice, once it takes, like I said, it barely needs any pressure. And a little bit more, and That's it. Next, we're going to take our chain and we're going to wrap it around the chain ring and the largest cog only. We are not going through the derailleur. So we wrap the chain around the chain ring in the front and the largest cog in the back, and we met them as close as we can at the rear of the bike. Now, there's two types of links in a chain. You have your outer link, that's the ones with the plate on the outside, and the inner link, which is the plates on the inside. Now, this is a master link chain. Master links can only be connected from inner link to inner link. They cannot be connected from outer link to inner link or outer link to outer link. With Shimano, the first thing we need to do is find what they call the 0 point. The 0 point is that link that's the closest hinge to the opposite side of the chain. So that's the end of the opposite side of the chain, and this is the closest hinge. Now we have to look at the link that we fell on. We fell on an outer link. Since we fell on an outer link, with Shimano 10 and 11 speed for both full suspension and hardtail, we would count 2 pins. So this is our center point. We would count pin 1, pin 2. This is the pin that we would remove, and our quick link would go into that pin. And since we fell on an inner link now over here, we connect this inner link to that inner link. But let's say we fell on an inner link, then we would count 3 pins. So let's say, for instance, if it was like sort of like that, then we would count 3 pins. So that's our 0 pin. We would count 1, 2, and 3, because now again, we fall on an inner link. So we could connect with the master link, this inner link, to that inner link. 12 speed is very similar. The difference is if you fall on an outer link, you're going to count 6 pins, which is the 6th pin is going to be from your center point. That's going to be the one you cut in order to replace with the quick link. And if you fall on an inner link, then that's going to be 5 pins that you would count from the center point. You count like your center point, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and you take out that 5th pin where the quick link would go into to connect the chains together. So in my case, again, we said I originally fell on an outer link. Let me put this back because I tried showing you guys. So I would cut 2, grab my marker. Oh, I hope this one works. I never tested it. So that's my center point. I would cut 1, 2. Oh, that works great. I fall on an inner link, that's the pin that we're going to remove, and we're going to do that right now. So next we want to cut our chain, and for that we're going to need our chain cutting tool, right? So I had marked the link, and if I look at this link over here, there's some black spots on it. Try and mark it better than that so you don't forget it. Plus I counted it was 4 links from the end, so 1, 2, 3, 4. Now what we're going to do is we are going to take the link and we're going to put it in between this space over here. So again, that's the one I marked, right? And now we're going to take this, we're going to make sure it's centered. Make absolutely sure it's centered. Put some pressure on it. Don't try and remove it until you know it's centered all the way around. And now we're just going to put some pressure on it. Knock one side out. And boom. There goes the other side. Now we can back it out. And done. That's the pin. This is extra chain. Keep it. You never know if that might come in handy one day. And now I have a small link or an inner link to an inner link, and I could put my master link or quick link to connect them. Let's put it back on the bike. So we're back at the bike. I took off the tie strap. The suspension is now fully extended. I put the chain on, well, at least I wrapped around the chain ring. Letters facing you, like it's facing me on a Shimano chain, except this time we're not going to go around the largest cog. We are going to go around the smaller cog, okay? We're just going to take this guy. We're going to wrap him through just like that and just leave him sit on the guide wheel. I'm a little bit off because this is a brand new derailleur. I have to move one of the limiters. We will do that in a sec, actually. So I'm just going to go a couple of cogs in. So now I'm sitting on the derailleur, and now let's pass it through the derailleur. So again, we want to take the chain. We want to wrap him around the guide wheel here on top, right? And then we want to put him in back of the cage. So if you look at the back of the cage over here, there is a tab. We need that chain to go in back of that tab. We never want to be in front of that tab. I'm in a weird spot over here, all right? Because if it goes in front of the tab, the chain will rub on that tab. We never want it to rub on that tab. And then we wrap it around the tension wheel at the bottom, just like that. And you should be able to easily pull it through now. Next, we connect it. To connect the chain, we need to pull it together in order to install our quick link. Now, you could try and do this by hand, but it'll be a bit of a challenge. Or what you can do is make yourself a third hand. This is nothing more than a spoke, curve the ends. We take one side, put it on one side, we take the other side, we put in another link over here. Now we have enough slack to make our lives easier. As for the quick link, it has an arrow on it. They're directional. They need to follow the chain rotation, which is clockwise. So we're on the bottom. The arrow points this way. And we put the other link on. Then we connect them together, just like that. Now, when you connect them together, make sure that they are flush on the links that they are connecting to. Make sure there's no space, okay? As for snapping them in place, you have two options. You could use a quick link tool, which allows you to install and remove quick links. Take the tool, pop it apart, stretch it open, I should say, and done. We're snapped in place. Your other option is you would remove your third hand, take the link, bring it to the top. Then you would hold your brake and push down on your crank and it will snap it in place. And that's pretty much it for the chain. Let's move on to the derailleur. Before we set the derailleur, let's talk about the screws we're going to use to set it. For starters, we have this 4mm Allen. This is used to set the cable tension. Then we have our 3 limiter screws, a low limiter and a high limiter. This stops the derailleur from moving past a certain point. So the low limiter stops it from moving past the highest or the largest cog, the lowest gear, so the chain doesn't end up in the spokes, and the high limiter stops it from moving past the highest gear, the smallest cog, so the chain doesn't end up between the cog and the frame. The B limiter sets the distance between the teeth and the guide wheel on the derailleur cage. This is more important, well, it's important for the whole thing, but ultimately we're going to set it against the largest cog. We also have a clutch on this particular derailleur, but it has no impact on setting up the shifting and the gearing for a drivetrain. Now that we went over that, the first thing we are going to do is loosen the 4mm bolt. Let's loosen our cable to make sure that there's no tension on it. All right. Now, if you notice, my chain is on the 4th tooth. If I turn the wheel, well, it pretty much stays on the 4th tooth. The reason for that is this is a brand new derailleur, and right off the bat, they screw in the screws all the way. Outside of the B screw, they pull it out all the way in order to tighten the package so, well, they could ship it more easily, basically, right? So what we need to do for starters is take a 2mm, or next, I should say, we take a 2mm and loosen the high, the H, bring it out counterclockwise so we could get to our lowest tooth. Right there. We're going to start off with aligning the guide wheel with the smallest cog. The whole goal is to try and get these teeth aligned up with those teeth. So we use the H screw. That's the high limit screw. Now, if I turn it counterclockwise, you'll notice it comes out. If I turn it clockwise, you'll notice it goes in. So we want to turn it to a point where the teeth are in line with, well, at least these teeth here are in line with these teeth here. Okay, and that seems pretty close. Now we could test this. Rotate your crank. So I hear a click right off the bat that tells me I'm a little bit off, right? But I'm not that far off because if you look at the teeth, they're pretty close to being in the middle of the inner link, right? So right now I think I'm too far out. I need to turn it a little bit clockwise. All right. Just a little bit more. Okay, that's not too bad because we could take, I'm going to go just a hair more for now. I know I got the camera completely my way, to be honest, guys. Okay, so that's not too bad for now, right? I'm okay with that. The teeth, if you notice, are landing right in the middle of the inner links from the base. That's a good starting point. Next, let's work on our largest cog. Now, for the largest cog, we need to move the derailleur over and line up the guide wheel with the largest cog teeth. Now, I'm not going to use the cable to do that. In fact, I got the cable out of the way. What I'm going to do is I'm going to hold onto the frame with my fingers and push the derailleur out and bring it up. Now, if you notice, I can only go to third to last cog. That's because, again, at the factory, they ship it all the way, the limit screwed in all the way. So I'm going to loosen it up counterclockwise. Counterclockwise, it moves out that way. Clockwise, it moves in this way, right? And I'm going to keep on spinning until I make it to the end. Now, the reason I like doing it this way, I feel I have more control as far as minor adjustments, and I can put pressure on it to try and force it off the cog, the chain off the cog, I should say. And with force, I am not able to do it. And at the same time, I could line up, I could take a look. And what I'm looking for again is for the teeth to fall in the middle, basically, of the inner links. So in this case, I'm a little far out. I'm gonna go clockwise again a little bit. And that is looking pretty good right now from this angle, although the camera's in the way, I can't really tell. But right now it's looking pretty good. I can put all the pressure I want. That chain is not falling off that cog, okay? So now we're gonna slowly bring it in all the way to the highest gear. Now let's pull the derailleur this way to test to make sure it doesn't fall between the frame. Okay, well, where is it? I can't see it, there it is. So hold on to the frame with your thumb, hold on with your finger on the inside here, pull with your finger out, and it is not, I mean, I'm forcing it, but it's not coming off, all right? So we still have to do a little bit of adjustment here. We will do that in a bit. Next, we're gonna set the shifter cable tension. Before I do that, I like adjusting the barrel. So what I do with the barrel over here, this loosens and tightens the cable, right? So we can do fine tuning later. When I start off, I take the barrel all the way back, which right now it's all the way back because it's brand new. And then I'll go forward. So back brings it towards the bar. This loosens the cable. Forward towards the front of the bike tightens the cable, right? So I'm gonna start off with 6 clicks forward. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You could also do 8 clicks if you want to play it safe. This gives us some room to go back and forth in the beginning in case our cable ends up too tight, okay? Next, we're gonna set our cable. You're gonna grab the cable, then you're gonna grab your 4mm Allen, you're gonna put it in this screw and tighten it down. Now, give a good tug to the cable for now. This is somewhat temporary actually, and just screw the cable down and tighten it. Now we wanna make sure that our cable housing is tightly connected between the derailleur and the shifter. And the way we're gonna do that, we're gonna leave everything as is in the back of the bike, and then we're gonna take our trigger and try and move up the gears until we can't move anymore, and then give it some force, right? The whole idea here is to tighten all the connections to make sure that our housing is tightly connected. Then we're gonna go back down to the highest gear. Now that we did that, what we're gonna do is grab our cable again. We're gonna loosen it. Give it another pull, and if you notice, look how much extra cable just came through. And we tighten it again. Next, we're gonna test our gears to make sure that the derailleur can make it from the bottom to the largest cog. We're gonna go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, bit of a skip there and there, and 10. So we made it to the top. Now we set our B limiter. So when it comes to the B limiter screw, that's gonna be dependent on the drivetrain, right? So 12-speed drivetrains have different settings than 11-speed, so on and so forth. For an 11-speed drivetrain, the goal is trying to get an 11 to 6mm gap between the bottom tooth on the cog and the top tooth of the guide wheel. The easiest way to do that, we could start off with a 5mm Allen, right? And just put it on the bottom teeth. And then we just take our 2mm, put it into the B limiter screw. So the one on the side, right? Now, if I turn clockwise, you'll notice it moves out. If I turn counterclockwise, it moves in. So in this case, we're gonna turn counterclockwise, and the whole goal is to try and get about 5mm, that's too much, right there to start with, okay? So we're gonna start there. Doesn't mean we're gonna end there, but it's a good starting point. Again, with other drivetrains, for instance, 12-speed, SRAM gives you tools. Shimano has markers on the derailleurs that you need to match, so on and so forth. So it is gonna be different. So now what we're gonna do is we're gonna take our chain and bring it down to the smallest cog, the highest gear, right? Just bring it all the way down. So this is a tweak I was taught a long time ago. What we're gonna do next is take the chain and bring it to the second cog. So click the button once, click your shifter button once to go up. Now we're in the second cog. Now we're gonna bring the shifter down to the first cog, but not the chain. So just click the button on the shifter. Now we're gonna take our 4mm, we're gonna hold on to the cable, we're gonna loosen the cable. We're going to pull on the cable and then tighten it back up. Now we test our shifting. Now we're going to bring the chain back up to the largest cog to double check the B limiter to make sure that it's still on point. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. All right. So that went up real smooth. Now let's listen to the B limiter. What we're listening for is a rattling noise, and I don't have one, so that means I'm good. Let me give you an idea what the rattling noise sounds like, because this is important. So we grab our 2mm. Well, let me bring it in by a half a turn. See if that makes that noise. So if I go down, hear that? That's the noise. So let me go back down. When I go up, you're going to hear like a rattling right there. If I go faster, you'll hear it more. There you go. That we don't want. That's telling us that that tooth is just a little bit too close to the cog tooth. So I went half a turn. Let me go half a turn this way again. Now it should be gone. There we go. So that's really good, actually. This whole thing is looking really good right now. So again, if you hear a rattling type noise when going from the second largest to the largest, minorly adjust your B screw in order to fix that. You're going to have to turn it clockwise to bring it out. If you turn it counterclockwise, that noise is just going to get louder and louder. Essentially, it's a grinding noise, all right? So now let's go all the way down. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I don't know, guys. That's looking pretty good for now. And this is just an initial adjustment, basically. That's what we're looking for. We're looking for smooth shifts. Now, if you get caught, okay, so let's say if you're going up in gears or towards the lower gears and you find that it's just not a clear feeling sound, that means you got to tighten up the cable. When you tighten the cable, it puts more pressure to bring the derailleur towards the largest cog. If you're going down and you feel like it's getting caught up on a tooth, well, then you have to loosen the cable. To loosen the cable, well, loosening the cable relaxes the spring essentially and allows the derailleur cage to come towards the outside of the bike. So that's how you're going to tweak it from here on, okay? And let me show you what I mean by loosening and tightening the cable. By loosening and tightening the cable, we're going to be using the barrel from this point forward. And literally, at this point, you shouldn't need more than 1 or 2 clicks. So if you screw it towards the handlebar, like towards the back of the bike, that's going to loosen it. If you screw it towards the front of the bike, that's going to tighten it. So as far as I'm concerned, guys, I'm okay for now. From here on, it's just going to be some minor tweaking. The cable will stretch over time. That's going to have to get, adjusted as time goes by. Obviously, this is a worn out chain. Cassette, I'm going to have to get a new cassette for next year. I'm not going to change it this year. And we're doing great. So next up, let's finish up the chain guide. As for the chain guide, the first thing we need to do is adjust the height and position. So we have the inner plate. We're going to take the inner plate, we're going to install it like that and bring it down. It should lock in place. Now, we have a hole over here that allows us to put the 4mm so we could adjust the height. We also have imprints of a link. We need to match that to the chain, basically, as far as height and position. So right now, I need to loosen this guy, bring him, let's say, a little bit forward right there. I got the height, so let me tighten him. And now I could tighten him in place. And we have our height and our position. And remember that there's 2 screws over here. Make sure both of them are tight. The other one's down here at the bottom. All right, so good 7 Newton meters, I would say a good fist tight. Now we have our height set. Now we adjust our shim in order to get the proper depth so we don't rub on the insides. So in the pack, they give us these shims. And these shims go behind that back plate. Okay, the way it works is just take them. This is the back plate. So this is what goes towards the back. And you're going to match this part here that looks like a mount into that mount over there. On the largest cog, is going to be the furthest towards the frame the chain is going to go, right on this side. And we want to limit that amount of space. So right now I could easily, I have about 3 millimeters in there, right? So I could easily put 2 shims in there and not have to worry about the chain rubbing. And that's what I'm going to do. So again, I go to the back, put these guys in just like that. I'm going to take 2 of them. Might even go, I don't think I need 3. I'm just going to do 2, right? So now we're going to put it in the same way we did before, right? So now put them in up like that, move them down. Now, if I take a look over here, I still have a good millimeter of room, maybe a little bit more than a millimeter. So every bike is going to be different. You have to test this on your own. Now I'm going to take the outer plate. I'm going to put that guy on. Okay. So now we're going to screw down the outer plate, lock it all in there, hold it all in place so the shims don't fall out of place. And screw them down. There we go. Now we're going to test them. So I'm at the highest gear and I'm not getting any rubbing. Now we want to bring it down, or the lowest gear, and it's not rubbing. Now we're going to bring it to the highest gear and see if we're rubbing on this side. Technically, we shouldn't be. So I'm at the highest gear and I'm doing good actually. In fact, I have about 3 millimeters on this side. So I could take out a shim and put him in the middle, and that's exactly what I'm going to do. So on this bike right now, as it stands with this Era 55 millimeter chain line and a OneUp chain guide, 1 shim is all that's needed on an Ibis Ripley. So just an FYI, folks, all right? Because right now I could easily get away with 1 shim. So that's what I'm going to do next. I'm not going to record it because I showed you how to actually put, well, how to put in the shims. So I took out 1 shim, I have 1 shim, and now if I go to the lowest gear, I literally have about 1.5 millimeters, maybe 2 millimeters. And then if I go to the highest gear, I have the exact same distance on that side. And that's exactly what you want. All right, so our chain guide is done. Next, we're going to cut the cable and put on the end cap. So for the cable, we're going to need cable cutters, right? The distance is up to you as far as how long. In the beginning, I like giving myself at least 3 inches. Usually I like cutting it shorter, but at the beginning, just in case something happens and I need to fix something or make an adjustment, I like having that extra space, right? You never know what's going to happen. So I'm going to cut it around there. Here's one of those park tools that's actually great. Well, you don't use it that often, but man, when it comes to crimping, this thing is so sweet. So put the cable in the end cap and then just press it down and done. So nice, so clean. Now what you want to do is bend it so it stays out of the way. It doesn't go in the spokes and doesn't get caught up in the chain. And there you have it, folks. You just finished adjusting your drivetrain. Not a hard job, and I fundamentally believe that everybody should learn how to do this. It's super important. There's only a few little details that you need to pay attention to. The rest of it's straightforward. Moving forward, there's a couple of things that you're going to need to keep an eye on. One, your shifter cable, a brand new shifter cable will stretch, so you're going to have to compensate for that with the barrel adjuster on your shifter. If you find that, you're running into some issues as far as going up and down your gears, well, again, you're going to use your barrel adjuster to try and fix that one, right? It shouldn't be more than 1 click, 2 clicks max. If you find that you're rattling going over time, because B-limiter screws can drift, if you find that, you're rattling going to your largest cog, adjust a B-limiter screw and that should take care of that. The rest of it, maintenance. Regularly clean your chain. I can't recommend that enough. They will last a lot longer. Personally, I wouldn't put any kind of lubricants on the outside. What I do is I just pour drips on each link and then I wipe off all the excess to make sure there's nothing there, but I regularly maintain my chain. So I can't recommend that enough. There's not much else. So if you guys like this video and found it helpful, please click that like button, click that subscribe button to see more videos, click that bell button, bing, 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 in order to get notified when new videos get released, and more videos like this are coming. So until then, I hope all's well with all of you, and we will be talking to you soon. Take care. Have a good one. Bye.